Welcome back to Editor's Choice, the media show with The Difference. My name is Bongiwe Zwane. It's the second half of the show. If you've just joined us, you've missed the day's headlines. If you suffer from FOMO, you're also known as the fear of missing out. You can watch the repeat here on Newzroom Africa at 3 p.m. You can also check out our YouTube and Twitter pages at Newzroom 405 for the highlights of the show. We always want to hear what you think about the show. Send us your thoughts by tweeting at Newzroom 405 with the hashtag Editor's Choice on 405, or better yet, send us a video message via WhatsApp to 072-110-5584. Remember to start your WhatsApp messages and texts with the hashtag Editor's Choice. Next up, we're back in the newsroom with Media Matters. Well, less than a decade after the advent of democracy in South Africa, tabloid newspapers took the country by storm. The Daily Sun, Sunday World, Die Sonne, to name just a few, have generated controversy for their perspective, lack of respect sometimes, and of course, lack of privacy, as well as the brazen sexual content sometimes. But that said, we cannot ignore that it's precisely the salacious nature of these headlines that get the tabloids selling as much as they do. Today, we examine the success of tabloid journalism in South Africa at a time when there's a decline in global print media. Are these newspapers still socially significant? And what role do they play in generating, integrating the readers? How do they hold up in the daily struggles with the political and social sphere of the new democracy? Joining us in studio is, of course, the Sunday Sun's head of news, Amos Mananyetso, as well as former Sunday World sub-editor Coetzee. Thank you so much for coming through. I know I'm going to talk about a subject that the two of you have been entangled in for years now. It's one of those things. I mean, you see headlines. People say, "Oh my goodness, who wrote this?" It's the reason why I'm going to go into that garage, because I really want to see what's happening. Michelle, you've been very key to writing some of those headlines, that have sold copies of the Sunday World. How did you do it?
There isn't a method as such. It's more like getting into a certain mode. And to give credit where credit is due, the person I learned to write headlines from originally was James Phillips, a musician who went by the name of Benaldus Niemand. Do you remember him? When I was first learning to be a sub, I often used to sit next to him and he'd kind of mentor me, and I watched him. He came up with brilliant headlines. And what I noticed was he was just playing. He was just having fun. So I struggled. I tried to copy him. I didn't get it right at first, and then one day it just clicked. And then from then on, I was just playing, really. So that, I think, is the most important thing. Don't take yourself too seriously. Treat it like a game,
Amos, are we treating it like a game? Are we playing, as Michelle says?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the whole idea is to have fun. If you are passionate and if you're feeling it, surely the reader will also feel the same, because it's almost like a telepathic thing. It's the same as they say that if you are smiling on the one end of the line, telephone line, the person on the other side of the line will feel or see the smile. So it's the same as what we do as an art of writing newspapers.
You've been responsible for content in tabloids for quite some time. Is it really one big gossip session on Sunday mornings? Or is it really something, that we should take serious as a craft, particularly looking at what the Sunday World is saying today, that it is now number 2. And I'm seeing the Sunday Sun also making that particular list when it comes to, papers that are read on Sunday.
No, not at all. I don't think so. And I always explain it in simple language to say the difference between tabloid and the broadsheets are the subjects that we are tackling. While the tabloids will talk about parliament, the party, the government. The broadsheets will talk about parliament, the party, the municipality, and the tabloids concentrate on the personalities behind those institutions. But if you look at the journalism is still the same. What we do is what they do as well in terms of the principles. If you look at the front page of Sunday World, for instance, today, the story that is on the front page, it's a legal matter that is in the courts. So it's not a gossip, it's not a rumor. It's a proper story that is there. So it's like any other crime. But here, the only twist is that the person who allegedly committed this crime is a bishop of a big church who is very popular, has got a television show or channel and so on and so on.
And Michelle, the headlines have a way of shaping how the viewer reads a story, isn't it?
Absolutely, but at the same time the headline has to represent what is written in the story. You can't have the headline doing one thing and the story doing another. So what I used to do was, as I was working on the story, editing it, key points would stand out, and then I would kind of allow an association process to follow after that, and the headline would just kind of form in my head.
And has the digital age shaped how, subs are now doing things differently, or is it still more of the same?
I think it's still pretty much the same, although, I've been out of it now for 6 years, so it's very difficult for me to comment on that. But I think, the way one goes about things in print media is still pretty much the same. Perhaps people in digital media are doing things slightly differently. I don't know that. I don't know about that.
And Amos, for you, just before I let you go, has the headlines in a digital media space, have they changed from what they are in print?
Not really. I think what digital has done is that it has actually enhanced the language that we use, because with the advent of digital media or social media as we know it, obviously the language is evolving more quicker than in the past, because in tabloid we also have the license to use what we can call the street language, or tsotsital, as the youth of today call it, the skrr language. So we mix all of those things. I mean, if you look at the front page of the Sunday Sun today, we used the word machangura instead of money, and that's the language that the young people enjoy or understand better. So we try and evolve with them as well as our readers.
Oh, interesting. So now machangura. Well, interesting. So now, Michelle, would you say that a headline is also what a picture is to a front page, or does a headline then, replace the front page and be more eye-catching, or do the two go together?
I think the two go together very, very much, yes.
So how important was it for you? Because I know when you would walk into that Sunday World newsroom, you always wanted to see what picture they used, what words are going with it. How critical is it for the picture to go with the headline?
Very often I wouldn't even get to see the picture. But, you get to learn what kind of picture you can expect. So I would try and paint the word picture that would be complemented by a visual picture. I don't know, let's come up with some examples. Sona, all right. Let's say the Sona story is on the front page of the paper, and I've got to do now a one-word headline. So everybody knows it was a big disruption. You could perhaps call it an extravaganza of disruption, but I've only got so much space, so I've toggled the two words. Disruptaganza.
Okay. Disruptaganza.
So I'm just playing. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's an inside story and I've got 3 words. I think, okay, now what can I do with Sona? S-O-N-A, so not African. Because it's not African to be so disrespectful with your elders, or something so not acceptable, and then I might want an African word. Then I'd have to ask one of my black colleagues, can you give me a word starting with A that means not kosher? I don't always do everything myself, especially working at a paper for a black audience, and I'm a whitey. I would sometimes have to get some input on the black slang. I got fairly good at it, but there's always room for development. Yeah.
And Amos, how are then the posters written? Because that's another layer where people are seeing the posters first before they buy the paper. Whose responsibility is that? And how do you come up with, those eye-catching posters that we see when we drive to work?
Well, obviously, in most cases, the bulk of it falls within the news desk, because we process the copy. We know exactly what the story is all about. We understand the fiber of the story, where it comes from, how it was, sort of harvested and reported. So, in as much as the sub-editors will write the posters, but we from the news desk have a bigger input. In most cases, with experience over the years. I just do them myself, and I will gather my colleagues to try and improve them where I think maybe I was lacking.
Well, thank you very much for coming through on that disruptaganza note, as Michelle has given us a new word. It's time now for Citizens Diary.